Welcome to CommercialDrones.fm, the podcast that explores the commercial drone industry, the people who power it, and the concepts that drive it. I'm your host, Ian Smith.
Hey everybody, Ian here in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada at the Commercial UAV Expo 2018, and I'm sitting with Greg Agvent. Yes, Greg Agvent. I want to say Advent constantly.
I'm not related to the speaker manufacturer.
So Greg Agvent, sorry about that. He's the Senior Director of CNN Aerial Imagery and Reporting Unit, which is known as CNN Air. And really excited to have you on the show. Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Ian.
Yeah, thanks. And this is a new... I've never had... So what would you describe your field as? Because I've only had... Most of the guests I have are like OEMs or developers of software or working in like other like industries and not the... I was asking you before we press record, is it ENG, electronic news gathering? And you said kind of. So what do you call your field of using drones? What is that for?
Well, so what do we call it? We're using the drones for production.
Yeah.
Right? Part of the production could be ENG, right? Electronic news gathering, which is our shorthand for basically a news event, right?
Okay.
But I don't just use the drones for news, right? We're using it for production. We're working with our Turner Sports team right now. We'll be flying at the Tiger versus Phil one-on-one golf match play event, which is here in Las Vegas after, I think, the day after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So we're using our drones, across the spectrum of broadcast production.
Gotcha. Okay, that's much better. Tell us a little bit then. How did you get into this? Like, what's your background? How did you become like the drone guy at CNN? Were you in a different part of things, or have you always been like kind of into this technology, aviation, and stuff?
Well, let's put it this way: I have been at CNN for 30 years. I have done virtually every job in the building. About 10 years ago, we started seeing this really strong phase shift in how we could do things as journalists, how we worked in the field. The technology was enabling new approaches, new tools. The advent of the smartphone changed the way we do things. Bonded cellular backpacks changed news gathering. So I went to my boss and I basically said, well, look, what we need a bridge between engineering and editorial. And that bridge should be about how do we leverage the technologies that are becoming available to us. Smaller cameras, faster connections, wireless this and that, all these kind of things. And that led to about 5 years of just focused on technology. 3-4 years, probably 4 years ago. Wow, 4 years ago already. 4 years ago, we started working on our drone project. And it was just a natural fit. My bosses came to me and said, hey, you're the technology guy. There's this new technology called drones. Own it. And so that was, we were off to the running.
Nice. That's awesome. And so the idea was just like, hey, we can get like really awesome aerial shots for a lot cheaper of a price, a lot more flexibility, kind of at a moment's notice. And I guess, is there anything else? Like, there seems to be a lot of advantages because you'd use a helicopter probably in most cases.
Well, that first response, right, 4 years ago was, oh, yeah, it'll replace helicopters. That's not the case. That first couple of years that we were in this business, I would get questions all the time from news directors across the country who were affiliated with CNN. Hey, can I fire the helicopter? Can I let this off lease and save a ton of money? I was like, no, you probably don't want to do that yet. First off, that helicopter pilot has what it takes to fly drones, right? He has a safety regimen that he knows. He has a safety management system. He's inoculated to this world of flight safety, which your people are not.
That is a great word.
Right? So inoculated.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. But the notion of where we were going with all this stuff, it was not just about saving money. And as a matter of fact, one of my biggest challenges is taking new pilots and having them go from just recreating helicopter shots to really getting creative with the technology and what that technology can do. This is corny, I know. But I like to say it's not about the motion, it's about the emotion. It's not about the altitude, it's about the attitude. Yeah. And that drone enables you to get shots in entirely unique ways.
And so can you just paint the picture then? Like, I guess whenever I imagined it, so there's like so is it a pilot? Like, how many pilots do you guys have? And like, who are the pilots? It's not like the person who's like the on-screen personality, because that person's busy being the on-screen personality.
Sure.
So like, how does this work? You guys have national, international reach here? Are you operating just across, like, what is the scope maybe? You can just to help us understand, because you guys are a very large media outlet, one of the largest.
We are, we have 2 full-time pilots domestically, 2 internationally. We have about 3 dozen, between 30 and 3 dozen trained and equipped part-time pilots. So 4 total full-time pilots, 30 some odd part-time pilots. The part-time pilots go through a training regimen that we designed and worked with Dart Drones to educate them, to get them past their Part 107, to get them their 107, and then well beyond. Because we consider ourselves a gold standard in the journalism world. Well, we wanted our pilots to have that same gold standard. So, taking someone who is not who's an unknown, who knows nothing about drones, and trying to teach them safety and all that stuff was something that I didn't want to take on myself. I'm not qualified, but I needed to have a program and a process that at the end of the day would kick out a fully qualified, safety-oriented, safety-first pilot. So. We've flown probably, well, let's see, CNN Air is about 2 years old, all right? We got our 107 in August. 107 passed in August 16th of 2015. 2016. CNN Air was ginned up and announced as a full-fledged unit within CNN.
Nice.
Since then, we've flown over 400 missions in the U.S., about 3,600 separate takeoffs and landings, right? A mission is, the larger envelope. Several flights can occur within a mission.
Okay.
We've spent almost 400 hours in the air, all without incident.
Very
that's
nice.
across all those, that broad spectrum of pilots. My 2 full-time pilots in the U.S. are extremely busy. And they're doing everything from the commodity work, right, which might be the low-end type stuff. Hey, we just need a 6-second shot of the St. Louis Arch.
And they'll still fly. They'll get in a commercial flight if they're not located there and fly.
So that's that's why we've approached this the way we've approached it, right? So they're first off, drones, it's not one size fits all, and within the pilots and their skill set, it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
So my 2 full-time pilots have access to a range of drones, including some big honking, great camera, really capable craft, and they do the high-end specialty kind of work. The reason we trained people was because we understood that it's not going to make sense for us to jump on a commercial flight, fly to St. Louis, fly a drone for a 6-second shot at the beginning of a package, right? So there's a commodity aspect to that production, to the pictures that drone can create. Now, having said that, the spectacular nature of the imagery that we created last year around the 3 back-to-back hurricanes, right? Harvey, Irma, and Maria was, I think, a watershed moment for drones and journalism in particular, because unfortunately, the damage was so devastating, and the pictures were so compelling that you really saw things differently.
Yeah.
You talk about context and scope and understanding, and that's what that drone shots enabled or allowed.
Wow. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's very impressive. So I guess the part-time pilots are kind of spread out around the U.S. strategically. They can go slot in wherever they need.
Exactly.
Smart. Okay. So you outsource the training. I mean, that's smart as well. Like, it sounds like you guys put a lot of thought into that, and as you just mentioned, you have to in your line of business, of course. And this is something that we definitely advocate for. We are both advisory board members to the Commercial UAV Expo. And speaking of that, you had a presentation here. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what were you talking about, and just some learnings from it?
Sure. Well, the presentation was the IPP update, right? The integrated pilot program update. I moderated a panel that included representatives from 4 of the 4 of the chosen programs, and several partners, folks who were partners in those programs. And it was really, really, I think, having seen what I saw and having been able to, go back and forth with folks in these programs, I'm very, very impressed. And I think we're off to a good, fast start. Now, CNN, we're involved very specifically with North Dakota, Choctaw Nation, and Kansas. But hearing from the folks at San Diego and North Carolina and some of the other Alaska Fairbanks on what they've done to date, it's really, really promising stuff. And I think it's, we were one of the first, we were one of the original Pathfinders, right? The FAA's program called Pathfinder.
Yeah.
Our goal, our mission in Pathfinder was to achieve operations over people. We did that. We achieved that a year ago this month. But the Pathfinder program had, for all the good that it did, it had a flaw. And the flaw was simply that it didn't go broad enough. It didn't involve the public. It didn't involve state and local authorities, which I think is the beauty of the IPP. It goes that one step further, right? At the Pathfinder, it was 2 entities, the FAA and CNN, or the FAA and BNSF, or the FAA and Precision Hawk. And we worked really hard, and everybody was achieved their goals, but it was missing that element, and it was that element that we really needed to. We're going to be flying over state and local, airspace. We're flying in state, over states and localities. So we needed to get them involved, and I think it's really changed the equation.
Wow. Okay. And so can you give us a little bit of info on how are you working now? What are your kind of missions with the UAS IPP in North Dakota? Or is it just you get special permission to try operations that normally would be out of scope or needing a waiver? This is fascinating because it's kind of an inside look that a lot of people don't really know what's going on in there.
Well, so all of the above, right, is probably the flippant answer. But I mean, what it really enables us to do is push that envelope. The specifics of North Dakota. I just came to Vegas from Fargo. It was the hardest packing job I ever had to do because it was 30 in Fargo and 90 outside here. So I've overpacked, but. What we had to do was really kind of plot our move forward, right? So we can fly over people today. So what's the next step, right? And one of the next steps is to make it regular, right? Our waiver says very specifically Class G airspace.
So this is the waiver for flying above people that you guys were able to get. Cool. Okay.
Yes. So we want to be able to push that. We want to be able to push that into different airspace. The airspace we were flying in North Dakota was a zero altitude facility map space. It was right at the end of the runway of Hector International Airport in Fargo. So we had to work with the tower. We had to work with the FAA. Now, what did we get with that? Well, I think we get some reps. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
You get some reps. The other variant in that operation was we were flying alongside another drone. There was a second drone in the air. We were flying over people at a tailgate at the North Dakota State South Dakota State football game. Thousands of people.
Thousands of heads.
Yes.
That you were flying
thousands
over,
and thousands of heads. All without incident, right? So one of the other drone was Cass County Sheriff's Office that was not surveilling, but was just monitoring activities from above. So we had a airspace waiver to 125 feet. They flew between 105 and 125. We flew below 90. We had a floor of, we set 70 feet as a minimum. And we set that because you're flying over a bunch of people tailgating. I didn't want to end up with somebody throwing something at us, right? But so we were extra safe on our first outing. What we came to learn was people were jazzed about it. We had a community outreach tent within the parking lot where the tailgating was ongoing, and people were coming up and they were having a blast.
CNN Air on it or something?
Well, no, we didn't. It's Trump country.
Yeah, that's right.
That's as political as I'll get. No, it was the North Dakota Department of Transportation sponsored the community outreach.
Okay.
We brought a mock-up of our Vantage Robotics Snap drone. That's the craft that has the waiver. They brought a mock-up of the Phantom 4 with the Para-Zero parachute system on board.
Oh, you guys got a parachute. Nice.
Well, that was Botlink that flew that. Botlink was the folks that actually flew the Cass County Sheriff's Office flights. They're a Fargo company. They're really good at what they do. Fun to work with. But we ended up learning a lot from each other.
That's awesome. So that's one of the things I also wanted to get into. So I want to dive a little deeper into the flying over people waiver. So as many of the listeners will know, currently under Part 107, unless you get a waiver, you cannot fly commercially over someone's head. And it doesn't matter how high the drone is. If it's at 400 feet, if someone's directly below the drone, that is technically illegal. And you just can't do it unless they're part of the operation.
Right.
So unless they've been briefed on everything and da-da-da-da. So when you're doing news stories like you guys will be doing often, obviously that's a problem because you want to get up and close into the action, but of course maintain a nice safe distance. So this is really cool. So you guys were the first recipient of a waiver for being able to fly over people's heads. So can you just give us a little bit about the process of the waiver and then like what it's enabled you to do? And then I want to kind of get into the hardware that you guys are using and maybe some of the software too.
Well, so the process, it was a 2.5-year process, right? And there were times, and I don't have any compunction saying this. I think there were times when we were frustrated with the FAA. I think there are just as many times when the FAA was frustrated with us. This is all new territory. We were really feeling out the process. There were, we spent the first 6 months killing trees, right, creating paper. And finally, as I'm about to get frustrated, it came to the realization that paper, that safety, the ConOps that we created, the safety management systems that we discussed and ultimately created, all the paperwork that we had done was that basic foundation, which was going to get us to the next level. Yeah. Right. So then we had to work on finding the craft that was going to achieve our stated goal. And that was not an easy thing at the time. There were not a lot of options on the table. I still don't think there are
for the specific aircraft.
For the specific aircraft,
and you have a weight limit, right? Like it wasn't just you can use any drone up to 55 pounds to fly over people's heads.
Well, what we ended up with is a very specific drone being part of that waiver.
Oh, so you have to have like a type.
It's not a weight limit. It's not a weight limit. It's a specific drone.
Interesting. Okay.
So I am allowed to fly the Vantage Robotics Snap drone, 1.37 pounds, fully enclosed propellers, frangible by design. I'm allowed to fly that over people up to a maximum of 150 feet in Class G airspace.
Up to a maximum. Oh, the altitude of 150.
Yes.
Okay. Huh.
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, well, why would they limit your altitude? But I guess the kinetic energy of the drone potentially falling.
Honestly, we were half expecting that they would set some sort of minimum altitude.
That's what we did. Yeah.
Right. So we set the minimum altitude, and the minimum altitude is a sliding scale. It's set by the PIC, the pilot in charge. Yeah. And I don't have my part-time pilots that we had discussed earlier. They're not able to exercise that waiver. Right. So they don't have the drone. That waiver does not apply to them. And on it, so my full-time pilots in the U.S., the two of them have that drone. We'll try to expand as we determine who are the more trustworthy pilots within, who's earned that right. And oh, by the way, there's a strategic part of the deployment. If I have one in New York and one in Atlanta, I probably want one in L.A. and one in Chicago. That kind of stuff. So we'll go through those motions once we're ready to do that. But I'll say this about operations over people. We've had the waiver for a year. We got it, I think, on October 17th. And here we are, October 2nd. So we got it about a year ago. We've really only used it a handful of times. And the reason is real simple. If I can get the shot without operating over people, I'm going to do it that way. Yeah. I can deploy a more robust system. A better camera, quite frankly.
I mean, that's what you got. That's probably the biggest thing. It's like, how good is the camera? Yeah. How long can it fly?
Yeah. Yeah, that Snap can fly for, it handles wind amazingly. I mean, we had windy conditions up in Fargo, and it'll fly for 17 to 20 minutes. And the camera is a good camera. But it's not as good as some of the other options that are out there. And so you're always looking for, we're broadcasters.
Yeah.
You know,
at 1.7 pounds or what, roughly 1.37 pounds, there's only so much camera you can fit on the drone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This episode of Commercial Drones FM is brought to you by FLIR. Pretty much everyone in the commercial drone world knows about FLIR's thermal imaging technologies and may even have a basic understanding of how their sensors work. At Commercial Drones FM, we think this technology is deserving of the spotlight to reveal some of the incredible things thermal imaging drones can accomplish. Drones equipped with thermal imagers offer a way to see the world from a different perspective, which can help identify infrastructure problems, locate missing people, and increase safety and efficiency across a variety of industries. The value of thermal imaging for commercial drone operations is undeniable. So I want to use this podcast as a platform to dive deep into the world of heat and seek out the best practices and the unique use cases that make thermal imaging sensors the most drone-ready payload for commercial drone applications right next to RGB cameras. So join us over the coming months as we invite FLIR and their customers into our studio to discuss the technical and practical uses of their groundbreaking efforts in aerial thermal imagery. Okay, back to the show.
Okay. And so, Leah, what about the other drones that you guys use? I mean, are you using like you mentioned DJI products, like anything specific? Like what is your most badass like drone for journalism or news gathering or whatever it is? Like if there's like, no limitations, what are you grabbing? Like what's the best tool for the job?
Well, that drone doesn't exist. Seriously, it doesn't exist today.
And why is that?
Well, I mean, think about it. We're taking drones that are we're taking drones off the shelf.
Yeah.
That are not designed for a specific mission, and we're asking them to do a specific mission. So the perfect drone, right? That's the basis of your question. Perfect news gathering drone does not exist. If anybody within earshot wants to build it, I'm all ears.
So what would make the perfect news gathering drone that doesn't really exist today, or is maybe not like, it doesn't have everything maybe that you need?
Well, so I think you have to start with a broadcast quality transmission from the drone to the ground, right?
Okay.
So a lot of the systems that are proprietary in nature, DJIs, and even others, are proprietary, and they compress the video.
Gotcha.
And when on the ground, we uncompress or decompress the video. In a high-end broadcast setting, that's not optimum. Right now, I could go and I could buy an Alta Free Fly and I can hang a bunch of stuff off of it and spend $50,000 on a drone and have a drone that has the broadcast quality that I really demand.
Yeah.
But then I can only buy one of them instead of buying 40 of them.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a balance. I can get by on. It's a give and take, right?
Yeah,
when you're designing anything,
of
right? Of
course.
It needs to be waverable. It needs to be waverable for operations over people, right?
Yeah.
So it needs to be lightweight. It needs to, in my view, this is one man's view. I am a huge proponent of fully enclosed propellers. I got sideswiped by not a drone in flight, by a drone on the ground, a blade that was not spinning, right across the bridge of my nose, and I bled.
Ooh,
and so that's had an impact on me,
for sure,
literally and figuratively. But I came away from that and I said, you know what? I don't want that picture of that kid, with a gouge, because I was flying a drone trying to do my job. I think the fully enclosed props are, in my estimation, and the way that we fly, are requirement for operations over people.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Like that's the whole, that's the thing. It's like, oh my God, a kid was hit with the drone. That's like the worst thing that can happen. Sure. And, hopefully nothing even more serious happens than just them getting hit.
Well, the worst thing that can happen, and the reason why we have become such sticklers for safety, is 3 little letters show up in a headline. And the three little letters are CNN.
Yeah.
Right? CNN drone grounds firefighting aerial efforts in Northern California.
Yeah.
Right? CNN drone crashes through 27th floor window of Manhattan apartment.
Yeah.
Which both of those are real headlines, right? Not the CNN part.
Yeah.
But I picked the headlines and I put three little letters in front of it. And I said, guys, this is why we're such sticklers on safety. We can't ever have this happen.
Wow. Yeah. There's a lot of high stakes stuff that you guys are doing. I mean, especially because you're just so known. I mean, that the CNN brand is just out there. So, wow, this is really fascinating stuff. I'm just really impressed with how far you guys have gotten. What do you think then, like, for the future of news gathering and journalism with drones? I mean, are you looking forward to anything in particular for, better regulations, or maybe hardware is topping your list for something that can really kind of push the limits here and get you this next level content that you guys are after? I mean, what do you think is going to happen in the future, or what do you want to happen?
Well, let me put it this way. To a certain extent, the future is going to write itself. It's the things that happen at events like the one we're at right here that help regulators and lawmakers kind of really understand what's necessary and how to draw up regulations. It's the good folks downstairs, the folks that are dedicated to this industry and dedicated to flying safely and operating safely within the airspace that are going to have the impact on the future. What I can say is my concern right now is about leveraging the technologies correctly for our use, right? For our broadcast and digital use. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is for the first couple of years of our existence, we viewed the output of a drone almost exclusively as video. And it was only when we got proficient and safe as producers of video that we started to think about what else that drone could do. So we're working with companies on AR, augmented reality overlays over live drone pictures.
Yes.
Which could be extremely valuable in certain situations. We're working with companies that do photogrammetry and 3D modeling and how we can do that. We've hung VR cameras, GoPro Fusions, off of some of our craft to create VR. We did some VR to one of the wildfires up in California in the aftermath.
So someone could kind of view it and kind of get right into the kind of action and look around.
Yeah, and there's even some maybe the less intriguing technologies, which I think are still super sticky, like a company called Hanger, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but they do 360 stills.
Yeah.
And the 360-degree still is really pretty sticky. And the simple fact that I can view it and I can experience it one way, and you could look at the same thing and experience it your own way, I think is pretty cool.
And that's content that would go like maybe on the social media feed or up on the website on an article.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you guys got so much other stuff than just video. I mean, there's huge different kind of content channels that you're pushing out. So
let me tell you a story about content channels and where our business is going. 2 years ago, December 7th, 2016.
You're very good with dates, by the way.
Well, thank you.
I feel maybe this is a fluke, but I'm just going to say you're better than I am. Continue.
December 7th, 2016, 75th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
CNN, we had worked with the U.S. Navy and the FAA for 2 months in advance, and we were allowed to fly our drones as sun rose over Pearl Harbor on that day, 75 years after that fateful day. It was a stirring and emotional and solemn moment. But what it ended up being for us was because of the time difference to the East Coast, right, 5 hours, there might have been 300,000 people watching CNN at that given moment when we took it live.
Yes.
Well, we also put it on Facebook Live, and 3 million people experienced it on Facebook Live. So that's social media. I don't know what it is about drone footage, but it just seems to be almost as or more sticky on social media than it is on a broadcast.
I think if you go live from a drone, that's like even cooler than just, hey, we're live on the ground or something like that. Like, and it's funny because I don't think you guys would really go that. Well, I don't know, actually. You probably have tried Facebook Live from like a phone to just have like a raw kind of experience. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that too. and the way that people consume the content. So you're just thinking about, I like the way you guys are thinking about drones, though. It's like what you're saying is it's not just drone video. It's like this thing that we can put in the sky in the 3 dimensions and place it somewhere and then attach things to it and do other neat stuff.
Let's say the story was, hey, Hoover Dam is right down the road. Let's say we're in the middle of a drought and we wanted to do some kind of volumetric data, or gather some volumetric data that could be supplemental to a broadcast story on the drought. Hey, look at the water levels. Well, here's how much water has disappeared from the lake just by taking some of these using the drone to create that volumetric data that it's so good at.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's all kinds of application. Listen, literally, we are just scratching the surface.
Yeah. Wow, that is super cool. Is there anywhere where people can go to just like check out just the drone stuff, or maybe learn more about CNN Air? Or do you guys have like a landing page or a blog? Or oh wait, do you have a social media?
You can follow us on Twitter.
There you go. What's the handle?
At CNN Air.
At CNN Air.
Yeah, we have an Instagram account and the CNN Facebook page. The regular CNN Facebook page features our efforts when we're live. I think just today we're down in Tornillo, Texas. We did a shot about 2 or 3 months ago. We were in Tornillo, and that's where one of the detention centers is, where Immigrations and Customs Enforcement was housing children and families. What we found was the video that we shot from 2 months ago to what we shot today. The tent city has ballooned. It's expanded tenfold. So we don't know. I mean, that's the start of a story.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's information that goes to a reporter, and the reporter says, I got to check on this.
I think I saw this, like, just it came across on some feed. I was scrolling through,
just
and I
today.
saw, like, the aerial stuff, some of the footage of that. Wow. Okay, well, check out. I didn't expect to be so blown away by what you guys are doing. It's really cool.
Well, thank you.
Congrats on that. Mega props. So yeah, if you're listening to this, go check out the social media for CNN, or check out the CNN Air on Twitter. You can just probably follow them just specifically with what they're doing if you're interested. So Greg Agvent, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Ian.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and cut off the mics, everyone. Cheers.